Hi, here we are almost to winter solstice 2025, and yet I can't let go of fall. Fall speaks to me in these glorious colors, leaves of all types. I just love trees, the whole 9 yards. This season, I'd like to preserve one very textural leaf that I found, pretty delicate, but I like to kind of tie in some of these beautiful colors we see here in our fall landscape. This is the leaf, and it's very delicate, almost like nature's lace. It's got these little black warts. The glycerin has allowed it to be flexible, and yet it is still pretty delicate and does have some issues with stability. I've got some satin, crushed satin, that I got at a thrift store in the remnant pile, and I'd like to go ahead and bind these two together, but it's a bit thin to stitch on, so I'll go ahead and put some fabric behind. I think this is an old pillowcase I cut up, and I'm going to do some invisible basting. So I need to get a good needle out of my needle book here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and choose a milliner's number 6. It's kind of the perfect application for this. It's got a nice straight shaft and shouldn't tear the leaf up too much when the eye is the same width as the shaft. And so I'll pick out a thread that looks fairly invisible against the fabric, because I don't want the binding of these two fabrics to show at all or take away from what we do with the leaf. I'm going to go ahead and needle my thread. I don't know if you've heard that expression before, but rather than bring the thread into your needle, I bring the needle to my thread in my left hand, and that helps me to more quickly thread that needle. And we're going to do something called the invisible basting stitch. It's also called a prick stitch. I think tailors use this a lot when they're basting fabrics. And it's nice because the face of the fabric doesn't show anything but little pricks, hence the name, and the larger stitch is only on the back. So you'll see as we go through this, you bring your needle to the front of the fabric, and then you do the smallest back stitch, 1 or 2 threads back from where you emerged with your needle. You'll see there, just go backwards 2 or 3 threads there down into the fabric, and then on the back you're moving forward about a 1/4 inch or a centimeter, and then coming out further down, going back again 2 or 3 threads worth, and back up about a 1/4 inch. And all you see on the front are just these little tiny pricks of thread, and if your thread is fairly well matched to your facing fabric, then you don't even really see that. We'll do one more just so you get a handle on it, and then we'll move on to working with the leaf. So there we go. That's the invisible basting or prick stitch. And now I went ahead, and rather than use the metallic thread, I have this gold cotton pearl. I think it's a 3 that I'm using. And we're going to do a blanket stitch. So we come to the face of the fabric, we go down at whatever length you deem appropriate, and then we're always working on the face of the fabric, we're not going back behind, and come up under the thread, and you get basically a pretty there, that's what you get. And let's go down again, and I'll show you. It ends up looking fairly square, and this again is the blanket stitch that we're doing. And I'm moving out from the spine of the leaf, and It's a little fiddly at times, particularly with this leaf. Gets caught, the thread gets caught a lot. So I'm working pretty carefully and occasionally have to get the thread over a little piece of leaf so that I don't break it or pull it off. And that happens anyway sometimes. So we'll do a few of these blanket stitches to get a good feel for them. And try not to pull the leaf apart. And then we'll just simply move up the spine of this leaf from the bottom of the leaf to the tip, making one complete row of blanket stitches. And there we are. See how they look pretty square or rectangular in places and irregular. I like the organic look of this, and it gets even more organic when we get to row 2 and start making the honeycomb type shape out of these rectangles and squares, which you'll see in a moment. But it's I did attach this leaf to the piece of silk, or excuse me, satin, the crushed satin, with some of that metallic thread you saw earlier. And I was going to stitch this entire leaf in that metallic thread, but that metallic thread was not appropriate for this leaf. It was tearing it apart. So moving to this thread was the right way to go, and it turns out I like the colors anyway. I wasn't planning on adding colors, but having it all in this golden yellow really suited the project anyway. So we're coming to the end of the first row on this leaf on the left-hand side of the spine. We're going to work right down to the tip. One more small blanket stitch. Coming up under that thread again for the final time in this row. And then we'll turn around and begin row 2. And this is where you'll see these rectangles transform into more of the honeycomb shape. Now the leaf is captured under that last stitch at the tip. So we need to put our needle to the back of the fabric and move down a stitch or two. And I like to tuck my thread under the stitches when I do such things, because you see that's the point where the leaf is fully captured by our stitch work, and we need to pick up from there and move down. That's where row 2 will begin, is where we have more leaf to capture under the stitch work. So we'll run our thread under that stitch, bring it up at stitch 2, there we are, and begin. What we do is we get under this stitch, under this straight leg of the stitch, and bring it up slightly. Pick a spot where we'd like to end our capture. And again, do another blanket stitch, but one leg of our blanket stitch is actually pulling up that straight leg of the previous row. So we go under this stitch, bring it up slightly to peak that straight leg of the stitch, pull our thread through, and again we're making that honeycomb shape. It's lovely, organic. I just like the look of this. Sometimes you want to go through the same stitch twice and again make organic shapes out of these stitches. They're not going to all be identical, and that's That's actually the charm of this. I mean, we're talking nature here, so we'll take 2 stitches in that one before we move on. And occasionally you'll catch the material you're working with, and it's good to use the eye of your needle to kind of get under stitches or correct things, because it's not sharp and pointy, particularly when I'm working with this leaf. That's important. And we'll continue on down row 1. Within row 2, actually, pulling up row 1 and occasionally tucking that leaf back under where it belongs. So we're going to hold on to that leaf, hopefully for a long, long time. Eventually this leaf will disintegrate, yes, but we'll be left with the beautiful stitches that we've created that will remind us what this leaf once looked like. And the fun we had with this project. I didn't have my thread in the right spot, so there I go. I pick it up, move on down, being careful as I go not to damage the leaf much more. Get to the end of the row. Continue further down. Yes, occasionally you'll see the metal stitches that I made along the spine of the leaf that attach the leaf to the fabric. And again, that was not a fun process, and it took perhaps an hour. I did a coral stitch with that metal, it looks copper. It was very autumnal, so I was excited about it, but it was the wrong material for this project. So I soldiered through and switched to something a little more appropriate. Every once in a while you're going to see that metal again, and when we stitch the spine for the final step of this project, you'll get a close-up view of that metal thread along the spine. But you can kind of see it glistening there. Here we are finishing up our blanket stitches. Reaching the end of row 2. And then we will repeat this process until we've encapsulated the whole right side of this leaf. Those little warts, those little black warts that you see there, they're tough. They're, I don't know exactly what causes those in leaves, but they're very hard, almost woody. And one of them actually pops off in this process, and I managed to save it and pop it back in under the stitching. See there, I got caught under it, and that's the one that will eventually pop off. But yeah, so it's more of this blanket stitch, just picking up one leg of our stitch to form that honeycomb shape in this row before. And we will continue on with this. This is a very meditative project, because once you get the hang of this, and I'm certain if you did this, you wouldn't have a leaf as delicate as this, you'd find it to be a pretty relaxing process and pretty rewarding, particularly if you're a lover of leaves and nature and color and texture like I am. And so we're going to move down, finish up that side, and then knot up some more thread. And move over to the left side of the leaf. Again, we're going to work out from the spine, identical to what we've done on the right-hand side. And up this center spine, I am going to kind of mirror stitch for stitch along the center spine what I had done on the opposite side. So you'll see that there'll be a leg for on the left, mirroring every leg on the right. Just along the spine though, really. Each side is slightly different. In terms of ultimate width. And we're finishing up this first row, and again, continue to mirror mirror the stitches on the opposite side and avoid tearing apart this leaf. Always coming up under the thread so we capture the loop. That first row is square or rectangular until we get to row 2. So don't panic if you end up with the wrong shape. When you get to row 2 is when you form the honeycomb shape, or the hexagon. It's missing one side, so it's not technically a hexagon, but that first row is missing a stitch along the spine. And here we're working up to the point again. Almost there. Yes, this blanket stitch is very versatile. You can do a lot with a simple blanket stitch. You can make beautiful things with it. Move to the back, tie it off, and get some more thread because I'm at the end. And there's that wart that fell off, one of the little black warts. I'll put it back in here. You'll see it reappear near the end. But for now, it's just going to live here on the wool pad till I get to a better spot to reinsert it. So let's just fly through this section. You've seen the stitch plenty, and I think you probably, if you didn't know it before, you've got it now for sure. There, I put the wart back in, tucked him under one of the stitches. He'll be there for a while, I hope. I'll lose him eventually. But I noticed that the perimeter of the leaf could look a little more pronounced. Give a little tuck there. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap the stitch around the perimeter of the leaf. So bring the thread to the front of the fabric. And we're simply going to wrap the exterior of all the perimeter stitches. So just like this. Go right around the leaf. And do 3, sometimes 4 wraps, depending on the size of the stitch, for each one. And that just makes that outer edge a little more pronounced, a little thicker, so that you get a sense for where the leaf ends. And it looks a little more finished. And there you have it. I went ahead and whipped that coral stitch that ran up along the center spine. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I look forward to having you on my next creative endeavor. Bye.